is not present. Mr. Douglas Brown. Mr. Brown is not present. Mr. Ray Hill, to be followed by Mr. John Johnson.
I'm Wilson.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Mayor Parker, members of council, excuse me while I get adjusted to people shuffling around and joining the party down here. Before the election, I came down and told you that I had some concerns about some policies in HPD that had been long-standing. They're not written policies, but they're practice policies. One of them comes to light recently because of the death of Myra Ical. There is not anybody in the homicide division that is sensitive to Ms. Ical or her community or the circumstances of her death, because gay people can't serve in that department. They've never been able to serve in that department. Recently, after my last speech, an officer called me at home. She was a black female officer that had gotten a job in homicide, and as soon as they found out she was lesbian, she was gone in a week because she's not welcome there. That's also true of the Vice Squad and large divisions of the Special Investigation Division. I don't have anybody to talk to over there, so I come down to council, because since Chief Bradford left, the doors are not as open to the community as they once were. And once in a while I can go in and spend a little time with the vice captain. He's a nice fellow. His brother's a good friend of mine, but he just don't have the gonads to stand up to officers, so lower ranking officers run that department. I still do not believe that it has any legitimate law enforcement purpose for officers to wear ski masks and brandish guns in businesses where there are scantily dressed women, because it's very difficult to hide a corresponding weapon if you're wearing a bikini. But that is a regular practice of Houston Police Department, and that doesn't have anything to do with professional law enforcement. That has to do with bullies with badges and guns that push people around, and I know a lot about bullies. I'm a gay guy. I have lived with bullies all of my life, and I don't have anybody in the city legal department to talk to. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a mistake.
Oh.
Sorry.
Keep going.
Okay. Mercy. I don't have anybody in the city legal department to talk to, because I'd go over there and complain about my concerns about interpreting appellate law differently from what the appellate courts interpreted it. Even the lawyer that the city hires to go over there, Mr. Zuma, says that I'm correct and the city is not about certain points, but I don't have anybody over there to talk to. No one returns my calls. I'm getting old too. Not only is this speaker adjusted for the mayor and Mr. Mata instead of Mr. Cooper and I, but a lot of us in this room are in our 70s. And I can't do this forever.
That one was correct.
That one was the real one. Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Mr. Hiller, a couple of questions. Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Mayor Parker. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for
Yes, ma'am.
coming down today, especially on such a sensitive issue about Ms. Myra. And myself, along with Councilmember Bradford, attended the vigil on last night, and many of the concerns, Mayor Parker, last night was the same issues that you bring before us today. But just sadly that murder, killings, and brutal beatings, it shouldn't happen regardless. And they were bringing up some of the issues about some of the concerns of not having someone to talk to. Even the representatives from the transgender community last night had concerns because they feel that that they don't have anyone to talk to when their lives feel that they're in danger. And I don't think that, I support our Houston Police Department, and I think that people should be able to come to our departments and have someone to communicate when they feel that their lives are in danger, or to be able to provide information to the community. And the information that was shared last night with many of the attendees last night was a concern of fear, was a concern of being scared. And I don't support any type of attack on anybody of any type. And so for a community to feel such fear of not feeling comfortable to come and talk to our Houston Police Department about issues. Someone said last night that someone know who did the murder, but they still afraid to come forward because they don't think the Houston Police Department will listen.
I went to the scene where it happened. In the first place, there's a lot of soft soil there. And in soft soil, you can get shoe impressions. There was no evidence there was any plaster of Paris over spills, and no shoe impressions were taken. I talked to the homeless people in the area. They know me because I have a voice that they hear when they're in prison. Homeless people get out of prison, and I'm Ray Hill. I'm the guy that's been with them and their families through that experience. They're very candid, but they are mistreated by police officers. It's very difficult to get them to talk to a police officer, but they will talk to me, and one of them indicated that he knew of another one who indicated that they might have known something. He's now going in hiding, but he'll show back up.
Yeah.
He's a regular and has been around for years. I'll be able to help the police track down that information. But I don't have anybody in that division
Right.
to talk to.
And one of the things that I'm going to ask Mayor Parker's support on is the area that is frequent by our homeless youth and homeless adults is an area that is owned by TxDOT. And one of the things that we need to look at is to make sure they can clear some of the area because they're saying that a lot of activity occur around that particular area. So anything that I can do in support on what you're trying to do, because fear has no face. Fear is not African American, it is not black, it's not Hispanic. Fear is a face that I want to be able to be comfortable to report, whatever it is. And so if I'm scared, and the people who we hire to protect and serve, because that was a conversation on last night, and that just, it raised to say, if I feel for my safety of being killed or whatever, that is a concern for a council member to be able to address when constituents come forward, and that is the topic of conversation. So I just wanted to publicly thank you, because there are some other speakers who want to address you, so I just wanted to thank you for coming down again and again to making sure that, you know, our police department is friendly to everyone. And so, you know, because we don't want to put fear in our constituents and fear in our communities not to come forward to report crimes. So thank you so much for coming down, Mr. Hill.
Councilmember Adams, you indicated that we needed to have conversations with TxDOT about...
Yes, the area where the incident happened
I'm familiar with the area.
It's right there on Garrett, right when they just put in that new spur, when 610 now, when 59 now comes down into Maine, that area right back there is where the crime happened, and that's where all the trees and debris and just heavy grass and everything, because my understanding is that's where the incident occurred, but you physically can't see. So if you're there and there's no lighting, so I would like your support, because back there in the back, either we cut it or we provide the necessary. There's lights there, but the lights are not on. The lights are not working. So I would just
work with you to figure out how to make that.
Mayor,
Thank you.
if you'll send some of your staff with me, I can take them to the site.
Thank you. There are a couple council members in the queue. Do we want to continue this discussion? Motion second. All those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ray, for coming down here. You came down when it wasn't popular, and it almost never. And
I wonder if it is.
It takes
still.
tremendous courage to come down and talk about hard issues, and this is a whole nother. If you ask questions about things, people try to paint you as being anti-something, when really, I believe, Mayor, this is a human rights issue. And I'm going to reiterate that I think it's important that as much as we value law enforcement, we must value our citizens, because the citizens are the ones who know what happened. I mean, they just are. And if the citizens don't trust the police, they're not going to talk. And so we may have, more murders as a result of people not talking. But the one thing Mr. Hill said that just jumped out at me was GLBT people are not allowed in certain divisions. I would respectfully request, Mayor, to find out if in fact this is true, or if there's been whether there's a written policy or unwritten policy, if people are moved out of certain divisions, if we find out that they're members of certain categories of people, that's problematic to me. I will say this, however, I am hopeful that you, Mayor, will take the lead on this. I know that we had an issue regarding transgender issues and having dignity and respect when you go to the restroom, and couldn't get it resolved last term, but I sent an email to you, and I think either that day or the next day you sent something back and the problem was solved that quickly. I suspect that if we have, so thank you for that. I know some of my staffers are really excited about that, as am I, but I'm hopeful that you will handle and tackle this issue like you tackled that issue, and we will make HPD open to everyone. And again, this doesn't mean that we don't like HPD. It means we want for them to have a really good relationship with the community. So thank you again, Ray, for bringing this issue up. And also, there was another candlelight vigil at another location, and actually, we had people at that one, so I wish I would have known about both, and I probably would have had someone at both. But thank you for being a part of that as well.
I'll go over and survey the whole area, because I do understand Councilmember Adams' concerned about the text dot problem. And actually, that's decoration where nobody sees it. So that particular clump of decorative planting is not as vital as the one near my house, over near where the mayor lives.
And on a larger issue, because I wasn't finished yet, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the death of Miss Ical and how the media and HPD has dealt with it. And I think we just need to be mindful of giving all people dignity and respect and not doing anything to allow.
Can I make one positive statement? I don't want to leave here negatively. Currently, a young public relations officer by the name of Officer Mohammed, his job is to call me and make sure I'm happy every once in a while. He's wonderful. He is absolutely wonderful. I think very highly of him. And you know, when he talks about transgendered people, he doesn't have any problem saying she.
And let me say this. When that issue was brought to my office, I know that I spoke with a very nice HPD sergeant, and so I'd like to give him his props. His name is Sergeant Roberts. And when the issue came to me, I immediately got him on the phone, and I actually sent out a statement because it was requested by the Transgender Foundation of America. And so he was very helpful, and he does understand that people did not know Myra any other way other than Myra, and that she was a she. And so we're working on that, and we've had some really healthy discussion, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember, let me assure you that there is, of course, no policy of discrimination in the Houston Police Department, and if there is an informal policy, that will be dealt with. Councilmember Bradford has questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me say that I shouldn't be surprised that I speak positively about the Houston Police Department. There are a number of officers doing a number of great things over in the organization, and it's difficult to get the message out that public safety is a community responsibility.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, all opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. That public safety is a community responsibility, and my concern and question is I am baffled when I hear citizen, community leader after community leader come forward and express their inability to communicate with the top officials in the Houston Police Department. And my question to Mr. Hill is it that the chief, the acting chief, the command staff, they just refused to meet with you, they didn't return calls, or what has been happening? Because I think a lot of what we're hearing are symptoms as a result of the lack of and miscommunication
Chief,
in leadership.
You've heard me say it till it's a cliche. I've dealt with every Houston police chief since Herman Short, including you. Your office was open. We didn't waste any time. I don't think I came in there with frivolous issues. We discussed them. We come to an understanding. Your command staff was present. They understood where we were and what the meetings were. I won some of those and I didn't win others, but I was always treated fairly and I was heard. That has not happened in the last 6 years.
And my response would be, Mayor, that we do whatever we can as quickly to send the unequivocal signal to the leadership that
Councilmember, I don't know what more I can do except replace the police chief, which I am already in the process of doing, but I'm happy to send whatever kind of signal beyond that needs to be sent.
Thank you. I think the replacement of the police chief will be a part of the equation. If we're talking about systemic change, changing culture, changing the police chief will be a part of the equation. But nonetheless, I think that it's sad when citizens actually believe that they cannot communicate with leadership of the police department, and we operate under the tenet of community police in our city.
One of the most
Thank you for coming down.
encouraging thing to me is your presence on this board, Chief. Thank you, Mayor.
Was that it? Okay, Mr. John Johnson, to be followed by Ms. Gladys House.
Yes, I